Oh, we ready. This episode is brought to you by Perfect Keto and our peeps over at Piedmontese. I'm actually really excited about this birthday cake bar that they got coming out. I haven't tried it yet.
No.
But I did get a box sent to the house.
Oh.
I have, because I'm on the carnivore diet, I'm screwed. I just have to look at it and imagine. And I'm thinking about the birthday cake remix from Cold Stone, so it's like sending all kinds of triggers through the body. And I'm not dealing with it that good, to be honest with you guys.
It's okay. You can bring it here for us. We can help you out with that.
I will bring it for you guys.
It's like the ultimate punishment, right? Like you took everything and guess what? You can't even touch it.
I know.
Yeah. You guys can touch it though. Or wait, I'm talking about Perfect Keto. Don't get weird.
Yeah.
Head over to perfectketo.com/powerproject. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject10 for $10 off of 40, or Power Project Bundle for $25 off of $100. And right now, at the time of this recording, they just released their birthday cake bar, where you can buy 1 box for 10% off, 2 boxes for 20% off, or 3 boxes for 30% off. I can't wait to try it. Hopefully they send us some. Hopefully at least it makes it into the studio.
Your way.
Yeah.
Also keep in mind, Perfect Keto, everything they have on the website is like keto approved. Everything they have on the website, I don't think in fact, I know they don't use any artificial sweeteners in any of their products. Things are sweetened with monk fruit, sometimes monk fruit and stevia. So all the products are kind of a safe bet when it comes to that. They also have like an instant coffee that has MCT oil powder in it. In addition to that, you've heard us talk about putting the MCT oil powder in our coffee. Yeah. For me, for this particular month, I am, have taken off of all that kind of stuff. But it is something that has helped me out tremendously in the past. And when I was coming down from being 330 pounds, I didn't know about Perfect Keto, but I would utilize some keto-like stuff to help me to stay on my plan, help me stay on my diet. Just enough, you're getting with something like Perfect Keto, you're getting just enough kind of mouth pleasure, as we talk about on this podcast, and you're getting enough of that sweetness that can help kill off that sweet tooth. And so having a bar at the end of the day is a great way to end your day if you're someone like me that can't kill the inner fat kid.
Yeah, but during World Carnivore Month, you have been pounding a lot of meat. So
I've been pounding meat.
Pounding it.
But it is no fap January as well, so really haven't been pounding it like the way you're thinking.
Man, you've been on a roll. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I haven't been shaving. I haven't been fapping. There's a lot of things going on.
Do less, be more?
Something like that.
What has been your favorite cut this month, though?
Man, I keep going back and forth a lot of times on a lot of the Piedmontese steaks, but what I've recognized from them is that their leaner cuts are really, really good too. So, like, I don't really particularly normally like a New York strip, but for some reason they nailed it with the New York strip. Their meat is still tender even though it's lean, and so I've been sweating the New York strip this month. And then also for tonight, I already have laid out at the house. I have a couple fillets along with that tomahawk ribeye, that dynasty thingy. It's like grass-fed, grass-finished. They got grass-fed, grass-finished beef for people that are into that, for people that really care about that part of it. They have a lot of great options over at Piedmontese.com, I believe it is.
Yeah, and then did you guys see that they're giving away like literally 100 pounds of meat?
I did not see that.
Yeah, dude, you got to check them out. We promoted it on our Instagram account, but make sure you head over to it's at Certified Piedmontese. It's like over $1,000 of beef that they're going to give away. Yeah, hopefully by the time you guys hear this episode,
that's insane.
Yeah, you'll have a chance to enter. If not, you can head over to Piedmontese.com. That's PIEDMONTESE.com. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. You guys know I love the Flatiron steaks. Ever since I started tracking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that's ever been made. Like, it's incredible. But yeah, head over there, check it out. Promo code PowerProject, 25% off. Who do we got on today, Mark?
We got Jon Heck on the podcast today, a strength coach, another disciple, another person that has been affected by Mr. Coach House, Joe Kenn, and it's going to be great to have him on the show today. talk to him about strength training. We don't always get the opportunity to flat out talk about, strength and flat out talk about performance. And this is going to be cool because this is like some real world stuff, and it doesn't always matter how good your strength coach is. In this case, the recruiting is a big part of it. So he's a strength coach at North Carolina, and he's with the football team. North Carolina is not known for their football. And so, that'll be kind of an interesting thing for him to talk about, because I think that a lot of times the trends that we see, they're like, oh, like who won the national championship last year? And that's the way of everyone kind of leans towards that. But a lot of times it has to do with, hey, they're just recruiting more mutants than you got. And so it puts you in a tough position. But being a strength coach is a really tough job. And I really admire anyone that takes that on, because it's a lot of hours. It's pretty insane.
It's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of athletes to have to juggle around and deal with. They all have their specific issues, potentially injuries, and you got to keep a note of it. I mean, obviously you have an assistant, but it's just, when I think about like basketball strength coaches or football strength coaches, there are so many athletes that you have to keep track of at once every single day. And then they're college students too. So they're not always doing the best things to take care of themselves.
Yeah. And then I can't imagine the pressure of like, if somebody goes down in a game, it's like, hey, what's going on here? Like, I don't know if that goes directly on them, but that's what I'm thinking now. I'm like, oh my gosh, like someone's responsible for something. And it's like, as they say, like you pass the buck or whatever. And it's like, fuck, does it end with the strength coach? Cause it's like, hey dude, they're not strong enough. Why are they getting hurt?
Yeah. Why'd the guy pull his hamstring?
All right. Yep. Yeah. I told you the deadlifts were a bad idea.
Yep.
There we go.
What's going on, John? How you doing today?
We got our microphone off.
Okay, we'll get him.
There we go.
How's it going, man? Can you hear us yet?
Can't hear him.
You just have to yell a lot louder. That's all it is. We'll get you. We'll get it fixed. Working on some technical difficulties over here.
All right, hold on. I can hear you guys now. Can you hear me?
We can hear you for sure.
All right, sorry about that.
Not a problem. How you doing today?
Doing awesome. Happy to be on here.
What's the schedule like here in the off season? You're the strength coach for the football team, correct?
Yes, sir. So we've had lift groups all morning. We played our bowl game in DC a few weeks ago. Last week was our first week back in the office. We've got the whole team back. So this the off season is the strength staff's time to shine. So in season we're working 7 days a week, long hours, but it's the football off season where the bulk of our workload comes in. So we had 2 lift groups early this morning. Guys went out, we did some sprint work, came in the weight room, got a big squat day in.
What's kind of the hardest part of managing so many athletes?
So we have 110 players right now.
Whoa,
we've got,
oh my God.
just a myriad of different builds, different ages. So, when you're dealing with lifters, you've got a lot of guys who are built very similar personalities. On a football team, you've got a million different builds. You've got guys that are 6'6", skinny. You've got short, stumpy guys. You've got guys from all kinds of different family backgrounds, all types of different personalities. So creating a program that, accommodates every type of athlete that we have in our weight room, that's the biggest challenge.
Also, how do you keep these guys concentrating, and maybe the staff for that matter sometimes, because they might see something that like LSU is doing in their weight room, and they might be like, Coach, like we got, everyone always thinks they got to try this new thing, or they think that that's 100% related to like LSU's success. So how do you keep these guys focused on the prize here?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, because we're strength athletes, come from powerlifting backgrounds where the people we're used to being around are the people who love lifting, who want to lift. Our athletes, they're football players first and foremost. So, they're not necessarily lifting with us because they want to as much as because they have to. So being able to create buy-in among the whole team, get the guys all on the same page as us, get it to where they get excited about training and they trust the process, that's absolutely huge. So our staff, we take a lot of pride in creating a good team culture in that weight room and creating a lot of buy-in. We bring a lot of energy. We explain to the players in simple terms how each and every movement that we incorporate in the program, how that's going to make them a better football player. So anytime we introduce a new movement or whatever, we always preface it with, hey, here's why we're doing this. Here's how it's going to help you on the field. And then we just attack it with a lot of energy. We have fun with it. We coach hard, and we find different ways we find the right cues that work for different guys. So, just creating that buy-in, getting these guys excited to lift, even though lifting is not their sport, that's huge.
I was wondering also, like you said, you have different lift groups. As far as their lifting is concerned, I know everyone's not doing all of the same things, but is there anything that you've taken from powerlifting that's working really well with the football players?
Yeah. So, the squat, back squat, that's the foundation of our program. Squat and bench press, those are two of our huge staples. So just coaching using a lot of the technique that I've learned through powerlifting on how to properly coach a squat, how to have a good eye for technique. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got all these guys who've got all these different builds, and being able to just have a good knowledge of that lift. So you can look at a guy who's 6'6", long legs, skinny, and another guy who's short, stumpy, and figure out, okay, how can I cue this guy to squat properly? So just being intimately familiar with the squat and the bench press from powerlifting, being as those are two staples of our program, that's been a big advantage.
Do you kind of like avoid the deadlift, or maybe do you do just hip hinge type movements instead?
Yeah, so we'll do variations of the deadlift. Like today, we are doing snatch grip RDLs. We do not do a whole lot of pulling from the floor, at least the straight bar. We'll do trap bar. We'll do RDLs, and then in the hinge family, we'll do our cleans and a lot of plyometric work. But generally speaking, in most football weight rooms, you're not going to see a whole lot of straight bar deadlifts from the floor, just because it's a high risk movement, obviously, and we feel like we can get the benefits of a hinge with safer movements.
It's also very interesting, right? Like you have a guy that might not be able to deadlift 315, but then he can smash the hell out of somebody on the football field. Could be like a safety or a corner or something like that, and it's I guess. From being around it for a long period of time and helping people myself, what I've learned is that if you just take that person from wherever they're currently at, maybe they deadlift 225, if they start to deadlift like 245 or 265, things like that, that can improve some of the way they play on the field. But as you're pointing out, a deadlift is a high risk move, and athletes can't afford to be walking around for 3, 4, 5 days licking their wounds from a really tough workout, because they have so many other things to be concerned about.
Yeah, exactly. And like you were saying there, people assume that football players across the board are just monsters in the weight room. A lot of these guys, even at the NFL level, you see some of these guys lift and you'd be surprised. They're not all necessarily that weight room strong, but when they're on the field, they just know how to play with leverage, play with violence. And, a lot of that's just a mindset, being able to just sprint in there, fearlessly stick your nose in there, hit someone, and know how to do it with good leverage. You don't have to have a big bench press or a big deadlift to hit someone low with good leverage and knock them on their ass. But yeah, so like you said, if we can take a guy, even if he's not the strongest in the weight room or on a particular movement, if we can just increase that number, we can get him a little bit stronger in that movement, it's going to carry over to the field. And we really want these guys to be have a strong hinge, be able to load their spine, have them brace their core properly, load that posterior chain. That's important for us. But like you said, if we get a guy injured in the weight room, that's on us. That is a very bad reflection on the strength staff. The football coaches aren't going to be happy about it, because I mean, the lifting with us, that's only one thing they do. They've got a million other things to do during the week. They've got to see the athletic trainers do their prehab, mobility, physical therapy, things like that. They've got to go out in the field and do position drills, and the quarterbacks will go out with the receivers, do throw and catch. The linemen will, the O-line will go out, bring out some bags, do some blocking. So, they've got to be healthy, ready to go during the week, because we throw a lot at them.
You were mentioning having these groups. Do you ever mix the groups up a little bit? Like maybe you have a group of running backs that are consistently working out together. Do you ever like kind of throw in a couple O-linemen and stuff to maybe push them to lift heavier, or for the linemen to keep up perhaps in the conditioning or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that, at least during this time of the year where school is in session, one thing that we've got to work around are the players' class schedules. At the college level, that's one of the big roadblocks we face. So our lift groups, that's largely working around the player class schedule. But then within those groups, we'll have rack assignments. So we've got 23 racks in our weight room, and we've got an assignment of exactly which players go to which racks. So we'll have a full strength staff meeting determining who's going to what rack. And just like you said, we'll purposely, if we notice there's a guy who maybe he needs someone to pick him up, he doesn't necessarily have, the high energy, the motivation. He's a guy we see a lot of potential for, but, maybe he's been lagging behind a little bit psychologically. We'll put an older guy or a stronger guy at that rack with him to push him. So, yeah, a big part of it is making sure every rack has a guy who's going to push the others around him, who's going to carry them with him, who's going to, set the tone with the energy. And that's a huge part of it, because in our weight room, we want high energy. We want guys training hard, supporting each other, because we're building a team culture in here. We're not just trying to get the guys stronger, faster, and keep them healthy. We're trying to establish a team culture. So it all starts in our weight room, and then by the time training camp rolls around, they're carrying that over to the field, carrying over that energy, that brotherhood, and that's been a big part of our success.
Do you guys end up sometimes, just because you're so excited, do you end up lifting with them a little bit? I know you need to do your job and you need to pay attention to what everyone's doing, but you just sometimes get hyped up in the moment and start lifting with them a little bit?
Yeah, so we every now and then just, yes, literally that will happen. We just get so hyped up. Someone just says, fuck it, let me grab that bar. Or, on Saturdays, we'll have open hours. We'll open up the weight room for a few hours, and generally the strength staff will lift too. We'll lift with the guys, show them that, hey, we do everything we ask you to do, we're doing it too. That thorough movement prep warm up that we put you through that may seem boring to you guys at the time, we're doing the exact same thing. I compete in powerlifting, I compete in strongman. I'm doing those exact same things. I'm taking care of my body. I'm doing my mobility work. I'm doing my core activation and all that good stuff. So, we love getting in there, mixing it up with the guys.
It's got to be pretty motivating, at least for a player, because I used to play soccer, to actually have a strength conditioning coach that's also big and jacked. It makes you want to listen to them more, because, like, being real, the coach that we had, he wasn't so, like, I think a lot of the players kind of like walked over what he was telling them to do, even though they shouldn't have. But like, if you see a guy like yourself who's like, what, 6'4", 6'5", 2 something,
I'm 6'7".
Jesus Christ.
I'm 6'7", 310 right now.
Yeah. Oh God.
I'm on the lighter end of what I normally weigh. But yeah, having a strength coach that looks the part, that's big, because like I said earlier, these guys, they come in here, they don't necessarily want to be in there. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily initially trust the process, but you look the part as the strength coach. All right, now you're commanding their attention and their respect from the get-go.
Yeah.
You've got to back it up. You got to be able to back it up if you're going to look the part. But we, as a strength coach, you want to come in here looking soft-bodied, because you'll lose these players right off the bat.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times you probably get confused as a player, right? People probably think you're a player most of the time.
Oh yeah, all the time. I don't think I've gone one day in the past 10 years without being asked by someone on the street if I play football or what do I do.
Right. Just tell them you're number 55 and to look for you on Saturday. just give in to it. They'll be like, I don't see a 55 out there. This is so weird. What's the
The
biggest?
worst is sometimes I'll have people come up to me. They'll ask, how tall are you? But sometimes people just come up to me and look up and say, wow, you're tall. I don't know how to respond to that.
You used to say, wow, you're not. What's the biggest difference, because you had some experience in the NFL as well, what's the biggest difference between NFL and college?
From a strength coaching perspective?
Yeah, from just a general coaching perspective, period, like the mindset of the athlete maybe.
Right. So in the NFL or in the college level, the strength coach is generally, you're an authority figure. You're typically in a disciplinary role. You know, we've got these guys come in, they're 18 years old, and we play a large part in, you know, any type of players are missing class, players are getting in trouble, the strength staff handles the discipline. You know, a lot of time we're establishing that team culture, and we, you know, sometimes we have to yell, sometimes we'll have to be hard on these guys. In the NFL level, you are not an authority figure as a strength coach. You're dealing with grown men. You're dealing with men who are being paid a lot of money. So in the NFL level, you're more in service to the athlete. You're almost more of a colleague. Just you're providing a service to them. How can we help you make more money? How can we help you, you know, just be a better professional? In the college level, it's, you know, we're an authority figure. So and then just the athletes are a little bit different. In the NFL, like I said, you're dealing with grown men. They're very mature. The athletes who have made it to that level, they're generally intelligent. So, you know, they're smart, they're older. You're dealing with, you'll have some guys that are 22. You'll have some guys in their 40s. So you're dealing with a big spectrum of ages, experience levels. Guys have kids, they have families. They've, you know, most of the players that I was coaching with the Panthers were older than me, making a hell of a lot more money than me. So learning how to reach those guys who, you know, hold a much higher status than I do in my life, you know, it's a much different dynamic than dealing with an 18-year-old kid fresh out of high school who, you know, we're kind of whipping him into shape a little bit.
You know, I'm curious about this. If it's, at least if the wave has gotten over there, you know how like the NCAA, they're thinking about, or there's something going around about how they might end up paying athletes. Has that rippled over yet in terms of like, have you thought of that, how that might change the dynamic if it does?
Yeah. So I mean, that's been in talks for a while now. That whole situation, it's a much more complex issue than people are aware of. Because I mean, from the outside, it just seems simple. The team generates tons and tons of money. The athletes are obviously essential to that, so why not give them a cut of it? Well, the issue is we've got all this Title IX, for example, which is a rule that if we're going to pay our male football players X amount of money, well, we've got to be paying essentially an equal amount of money to the women's sports. There's a whole lot of rules in place you'd have to navigate in order to be paying players. And then there comes the question, you know, do you pay all the players equally? Do they have, you know, are you paying your starters more than your backups? Are you, you know, what jersey sales, or video game appearances? There's so many components to this whole thing. I don't foresee a simple solution to this. And I'm honestly, I'm not qualified to speak on it because there's so much more going on behind the scenes with that than I could even fathom. I don't see anything substantial happening anytime soon with that though. But I mean, and I'd be a little bit nervous about it because, you know, the NFL players, they're making a lot of money and they're older, they're a little more mature. I'd be a little bit nervous about what might happen if you start paying, you know, 18, 19-year-old kids a lot of money. A lot of those guys, they're coming from nothing. They don't know the first thing about handling money, let alone handling their own life, living on their own for the first time. So, you know, I'd be nervous if players started getting paid at this level, but I think we're a ways away from that.
How'd you get started in all this? Because there's probably some people listening that would love to be a strength coach. You just have to lift a lot of weight. What's the qualification for this? I mean,
I'll tell you right now, being on this podcast is surreal to me because you guys played a huge role into getting me where I am today. I was always interested in the weight room. I was always kind of drawn to the weight room. My dad played in the NFL for 12 years. He's a current NFL coach. So, I'd go into the stadium with him as a kid. I'd always kind of gravitate towards the weight room. But when I was in high school, I started watching your YouTube channel. I'd stumbled upon some West Side barbell stuff online. That was kind of my first exposure to powerlifting. And then I found your YouTube channel. I got hooked. I mean, I'm watching the backyard meet of the century. I'm watching your super training videos. And then I'm listening to the original podcast, having all the, Eric Spoto, Pete Rubish, and those guys on. And I mean, I was absolutely hooked. You're the one who put low carb dieting on my radar. As soon as I got done with football, I went on a keto diet because of you. So, I mean, you kind of channeled my interest into strength sports, which then fostered my desire to be a strength and conditioning coach. So I played football here at UNC. I was a 4-year starter, 2-time All ACC selection, and I had an opportunity.
Were you a
to go
punter?
to the NFL, but
Were you placeholder?
Yeah, I played right tackle.
Cool.
But my senior year, I just decided when I was done with that season, I was done with football. My passion was not in football anymore. It was in lifting. So beginning of my senior year, I just decided at the end of this season, I'm retiring from football. I'm going into strength and conditioning. I'm going to be a powerlifter, and sacrifice a lot of money by doing that, but I'm doing what I love now.
I want to ask real quick, how did you deal with that sacrifice of that amount of money? Because a guy like you who could play in the NFL and make that type of money, how did you rationalize that?
Yeah, instantly.
Instantly, yeah.
It was. I mean, that was the hardest decision of my life because I grew up in a football family. My dad, like I said, he played in the NFL for 12 years. He's the offensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. My brother, he's currently preparing for the NFL draft. Every one of my friends was, a football player, a teammate, and then it becomes your whole life. And then it becomes assumed that you're just going to you're going to pursue the NFL. If you're a college football player, it's just assumed that we're all pursuing the NFL. That's kind of what we just go through life with that mindset. And then I just got to the point where I was like, I don't love doing this. Like I'm so burnt out on playing, and my passion is in other things. And I mean, yeah, I'll make more money in the NFL, but I'm not going to be happy doing it. I'm going to be wishing I was somewhere else, wishing I was doing something else. So I don't know, rather than spend these next few years doing something that I start to hate, rather than, foster resentment towards the sport that's given me everything, I wanted to just kind of take a different role in it. I wanted to be a coach. And also I wanted to continue as an athlete, just as a lifter. So, I mean, there's times I'll check my bank account right now and I'm like, damn, if only I had just played 1 or 2 years. But I mean, ultimately I haven't looked back. I haven't regretted a thing about it. Cause I mean, I've been loving what I'm doing these past few years, but the people in my life didn't understand it initially. I remember the phone call with my dad where I broke the news to him. I mean, I sat in the car for like an hour, just working up the courage to dial his number and tell him that I was going to be done. But I mean, he could not have been more supportive. He was amazing with it. And that was a huge load off my shoulders. But a lot of my teammates, coaches, they didn't understand. And I knew that'd be the case. Cause I mean, it was a very unorthodox decision on my end, but it was the right decision for me.
Did it surprise your dad? And was he kind of taken back by that?
Yeah, he was. Cause I mean, he'd been a mentor to me in the sport my whole life. And, I hadn't alluded to him or given him any hint that I was considering not playing, just because in my mind, I didn't even consider it a possibility. I just was like, well, I'm a college football player. This is the path that I'm on. There's no other path. It wasn't until my senior year that I just kind of started thinking, like, I don't have to do this. I mean, I'd spent my whole life kind of living in my dad's shadow. He was a very good player. He was a captained the national championship team at Notre Dame, a first-round draft pick, 12-year starter in the NFL, and I was a good player. I mean, I had scholarship offers coming out of high school as a starter in the college level, but I was never quite as good as him, and I was always kind of living in his shadow. And I just decided one day, hey, I can live my own life. I'm my own man. I'm going to carve my own path and follow my interests. I'm not just going to do what, you know, my family lineage dictates.
Mhm.
I'm gonna set out my own path.
That's super cool. And then from there, was your dad like? Was he? It sounded like you said he was understanding. Was he supportive, or was he like, "Hey, dude, like you need to think about this a lot more"?
He was very supportive. He wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing, because I mean, once you tell the scouts that you're not doing the combine, you're not going to do pro day, you're not doing the Senior Bowl, there's no going back. So we talked it over, but I mean, he supported me from the get-go. I was lucky to have a dad who, you know, you see a lot of these football dads who are just the hardo coach on their son, making them hit the blocking dummy late at night or ripping them if they don't have a good game in high school. He was never that. He was always a supportive mentor. He was always a dad first and foremost, and a coach second. So he was surprised. I'm sure in his heart he was a little disappointed, but ultimately he wants me to do what I love and to be happy. And I'm still in the sport just as a coach, so I'm still tied into that world. I'm still in his world, and my brother, my not so little brother, he's going to be a good NFL player. So my dad's got one of his boys at least still playing.
What do you think the deal is with like this kind of like family stock of amazing athletes? You know, like we see it often where, you know, one kid is able to break through in the NFL, and then there's like a couple siblings, you know, like the Mannings, JJ Watt and his brother. His brother's now a Pro Bowler, and then you have like Bones Jones, you know, UFC champion, and then I think he has two brothers in the NFL. Is that just a kind of a genetic thing, or what do you think about that?
I think a big part of it's genetics. I mean, I'm only getting my opportunity to play football at a high level if I'm my size. You know, you can't teach 6'7", but I think another big part of it is just when you grow up in a family of athletes, your expectations and your standards are higher in the realm of athletics. A lot of kids who grow up in a, you know, quote unquote normal family, I think they view college athletics, professional athletics as kind of just a dream, you know, something they're probably not going to reach, you know, just something they dream about. Whereas I grew up, that was my normal. Mm-hmm. Like being around NFL players, being the son of a guy who played in the NFL for 12 years, that was just normal to me. So I think when you're the son of an athlete or growing up in a household of athletes, you grow up just believing that is attainable. And the thought that you could also do that yourself, that's just a normal thought. I never questioned myself. I assumed I was going to be a college football player. And I think I lived like that. In high school, I had the mindset, yeah, I'm going to be a college football player. It's not a dream to me. That's going to be my reality. And I think in anything you do athletically, even in lifting, if you believe something is attainable and you actually operate that way and live as if that is something that is attainable and you're realistically working towards that, you'll have a better chance of making that happen than if you just view it as just a dream that you'll probably never really reach.
In terms of like your coaching pathway, because there are a lot of coaches that listen to this that I get obviously want to do what you do, right? How did you navigate, like, how did you figure out a way to get there? Were you like, I need to work under these individuals to get this experience, or I need to get these certs? Because I know like everyone can get certifications, but obviously you gotta somehow get away from the pack and show that you're better than everybody else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, a big part of that for me was luck. I happened to have a mutual connection with Kenn, with the Carolina Panthers. Dirk Cutter, a coach he had previously worked for, was someone who I knew personally. He was a family friend of ours, and he put me in touch with House, and that's how I got that interview. So I can't really call that anything but luck. And then once I got that interview, I just went in and made the most of it, and started off working as an intern and had to work hard, stand out, separate myself, so that from there, I could get a recommendation for a job. A lot of it is going to come down to connections, and in order to build those connections in the first place, as an up and coming strength coach, you're probably going to have to spend your first few years of working for free, or at least working for dirt cheap.
Mm-hmm.
My first job out of college, I interned at a private sector training facility where I trained a lot of guys training for the combine, and I was worked for free initially. Got hired by the Panthers, starting out making minimum wage, long hours, not a lot of money, but that's kind of the normal path when you're starting out in this field. And I think it's the guys who make the most of those opportunities, who, even if you're not being paid a lot of money, if you work your ass off and you do the best that you can do in that job while you have it, you're going to stand out, and you may not even be aware of it, but people are going to start making phone calls on your behalf. You're going to start standing out in the back of people's minds. Whereas if you go into this profession just thinking, I've just got to get through these first few years of internships, not making much money, so I can get to the point where I'm making a lot of money. If you approach it that way, you're never going to make it. Because as an intern, as a first year strength coach, you're going to make a name for yourself by just hustling and working hard. Your first year, you're not going to make a name for yourself proving how much you know. You're not going to make a name for yourself proving how much exercise physiology and technique. It's going to be about, can I work hard? Can I go above and beyond and make myself a valuable asset for the coach that I'm working for? Prove that, hey, I can provide something for you. I'm going to work my ass off, and then he's going to make a recommendation for you, and that's what ended up happening with me.
And in working your ass off, I'm sure that kind of entails everything, right? Like being a strength coach, especially being like starting out as like an intern, it's not really very pretty, right? Like you're probably picking up towels that the guys left behind, you're throwing away cups, and you're bringing them water. Like you're just doing like whatever you can to be supportive, because you're now part of the staff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my first few months working for House, I'm just cleaning up the weight room. I'm setting up the weight room. I'm cleaning out shaker bottles. I'm doing a lot of the grunt work. And, like I said, you've got to approach that work seriously and work hard at it. If you just view it as, I just got to get through this, you're not going to stand out. But if you attack those things, that's how you stand out. And that was something that I had to learn early on in my career was, because I go from being an athlete to all of a sudden now I'm scrubbing racks and just
you're a servant.
Cleaning up the weight room. Yeah, you're kind of in a servant role. And, it took a little while for me to realize, hey, this is more important than I realized, okay, because I'm being watched right now. And that quickly became apparent. So, I had to quickly grow up and realize that if I'm given a task, even if it seems completely trivial, I'm being watched, and it matters. House, he says this all the time. He'll often ask interns to clean out his shaker bottle or pick up a lunch order or something. He'll say, if I can't trust the guy to properly clean a shaker bottle or get a lunch order right, how can I trust him to write a program? And I agree with that. So you've got to prove early on that you can do these trivial little grunt work tasks and do them well and follow instructions. And that was a big part of growing up for me as a coach.
You can be honest with us. Has Coach House ever made you cry?
Only when I went home. Yes, my first few weeks, there were some sleepless nights, just like replaying in my mind. Oh, geez, what did I mess up?
Yeah, we've had so many different people on this podcast that have been positively impacted by Joe Kenn. all the way from Brian Shaw to Kyle Kingsbury to yourself and a few other strength coaches. What are some other valuable things that you picked up from Coach House?
So he was the one who shifted me over from the athlete mindset into a coach mindset. My very first week of working for House, the team was walking out to the practice fields. We were going to go out and do some speed and agility work. We're all walking out there. And I was walking with a group of 3 or 4 players. One of the athletic trainers pulls up on a golf cart next to us, says, "Hey, you guys want to hop in, catch a ride to the field?" I said, "Yeah, sure." We all pile in. Unbeknownst to me, there's a team photographer taking photos of all the players, catches a photo of me accepting that ride. And that photo gets put up on the Panthers website. House sees it. And then my picture got put up on his wall of shame. He's got a wall of shame in his office. And I learned very quickly, coaches do not accept rides. Coaches walk. You're not it was a lesson taught to me. Hey, you're not the athlete anymore. You've got to start being viewed as a coach. So you're not a player anymore. You're not taking golf cart rides to the field. You're walking your ass to the field. You're going to start being viewed as a coach. And that was it seems like a silly little story, but that was a little tidbit that kind of woke me up. Like, wow, I've got to change how I approach all this. And from there, he held me to a very, very high standard. Like with a lot of those little grunt work things, he held me to a very high standard of perfecting those things and learning to to handle problems before I was asked. And I think we were like 3 weeks in. He had been leading all the warm-ups, leading the movement prep, a pretty thorough and complex series of movements. And then all of a sudden one day, without warning me, he said, "John, lead him. You got him." And I was scared shitless because I'm just first year strength intern. I'm standing in front of 50, multi-millionaire NFL players, all of them way older than me, and they're all staring me in the face. So I start leading it. And then our Pro Bowl center, Ryan Khalil, he goes, "Hey, John, your strength coach voice sucks." And I quickly learned right then, it was kind of baptism by fire. I learned how to be confident in front of a group and command a group. And also it was a valuable lesson. You got to be prepared. You got to be on your toes. You got to be ready for anything. I was not prepared and ready to all of a sudden be leading that group. I thought I'm just the intern. I'm just, I'm here ready to clean up or, grab some bands or chains if needed. But no, he taught me I've got to be on my toes and ready and know the program inside and out, because at any moment I may be asked to lead a group.
Was there a lot of other things that just ended up happening that way, where you just like pushed in?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So with the Panthers, I was on it was a staff of 4 people, including myself, and we're working with a full team, and a lot of curveballs get thrown when you're working with a team of 100 athletes. So guys' schedules change, or a guy has to come in later, or guy gets injured and we've got to modify the lift for him on the fly, especially in season when those guys are they're getting banged up for their games, and we have to modify the program so much as we go. I was on my toes my entire tenure with them.
He's like the Mr. Miyagi of coaches.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he is. He's a true OG in this field. And I couldn't have been more lucky to have him as my first real boss and mentor.
I'd imagine even just watching him was probably super beneficial, because he like you said about the coaching voice. Joe is he's going to take command of the room. He's got a ton of energy, and he's able to kind of project his voice. There's so much that goes into being a strength coach. I think people kind of miss out on how much of it is a leadership factor. The team is looking to you to lead them, and to lead them to getting stronger, and in this case, getting stronger, healthier, being in better condition. What are some things that you work on, in the off season? I know it's a long way away is the beginning of the season. But conditioning is something that I don't feel like people don't even talk enough about. And, there's multiple reasons for it, but when we saw the playoff game, the playoff games that have been going on, you saw JJ Watt he was really gassed on the field. And of course the camera's centered on him and everybody else is gassed too. But JJ Watt, phenomenal athlete, future Hall of Famer, unbelievable talent, but he tore his pec earlier in the year. And then this is his second game back. How do you keep people from getting winded like that on the field? What are some things you guys work on?
Yeah. So, the conditioning part of all this is huge, and having our guys strong and powerful in the fourth quarter, that's something very important and something we took a lot of pride in this year. We were a very good fourth quarter team here at UNC. It all starts in the off season. We're already getting our conditioning underway. We have these guys in shape pretty much year round. A big part of the conditioning is tailoring the conditioning to the position that the player is in. We're not gonna condition an offensive lineman the same way that we're gonna condition a wide receiver. I think a lot of programs are still kind of in the dark ages, so to speak, where the whole team's doing the same thing and they just kind of take the approach of, we're just gonna run these guys until they puke, run them into the ground, make them tough. And you need an element of that. You need an element of developing toughness and discipline among the group, and putting them in difficult situations where they have to lead each other. But also you want to tailor a program to them that's physiologically optimal. And there's so many positions on the field, and the energy demands of those positions are so different from one another. A wide receiver, we'll have guys sprinting downfield every play, and then on the offensive line, you might be operating in a small 3-yard window every play. And so when we do our conditioning, we'll break up the team. We'll have the big men go with one coach. They're going to do an entirely separate form of conditioning than the receivers are going to do. Our skill guys, they're going to do a much higher volume of running. They'll be running longer distances. Their conditioning will be much more sprint oriented, a lot of work on sprint mechanics, plyometrics. They'll be sprinting distances that we're not going to have our big men sprint. With the big men, it's much more short burst, rapid fire work, things of that nature. We'll do a lot of strongman type conditioning with our big men. Farmer carry, sled drags, heavy med ball work, things of that nature, because that's gonna be a lot more conducive to what they'll be seeing on the field, at least from an energy demand perspective. So finding conditioning that is tailored to the position that player plays, that's the biggest thing.
There are a lot of high school guys that actually listen to this podcast that play high school football and want to make it, I guess, to the college level. Now, from a conditioning side of things, because, high school coaches obviously don't go into the depth that college coaches go into. What should a lot of these guys be trying to do in the gym to be able to get strong for college?
So when it comes to the high school guys, I'd say if there's one approach that you can master as a high schooler that will pay dividends for you, is just master body control. I don't care if a high schooler can bench 405 or, squat 500. The guys I want to see are the guys who move well, who have good mobility, who have good body control, good kinesthetic awareness, who have proper mechanics in all their lifts, who have good balance. They've mastered relative strength. They can do pull-ups, they can do push-ups, they can do a glute ham raise. Most of the guys we get from the high school level, they can't. A lot of our big men, they can't do a glute ham raise, they can't do a pull-up, because they haven't. With Coach Kenn, he's got his Block Zero program where he doesn't have kids under a bar or loaded with heavy weight until they've mastered body weight movement. And I think that's a big thing for these high schoolers, is learn how to control your body, learn how to brace your core, learn the proper mechanics of a squat, learn the mechanics of a hinge, get yourself to where you can do dips, pull-ups, glute ham raises, where you can hold a plank, things like that. And those are very controllable. Anyone can achieve those things. Not everyone can squat 600 pounds or bench 500 pounds, no matter what you do. But anyone can get to the point where they can do pull-ups, push-ups, glute ham raises, and have good body control.
Yeah, that's huge. I think, a lot of times you'll see high school kids, doing a squat and they're trying to use more weight. And then the more weight that they add, the more it turns into like a half squat and then a quarter squat. And then they're really just, barely kind of bending their knees. And then if they're deadlifting, they're really rounding their back severely. So having that control and be able to do the movements properly. And then also, if you're doing too many things in the gym that are, going to injure you, hurt you, slow you down in any way, then that's not productive for athletics at all.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what we have these freshmen that just came in, a lot of the times when we get new freshmen, we spend the first few weeks undoing bad habits that they've developed in high school. I mean, we had a D lineman come in this past year who his whole life growing up, lifting very heavy, squatting very high. And sure enough, he came in very poor mobility. He's extremely tight. And the first few weeks having him here, we were just, we got to teach this guy how to actually squat to depth. We gotta loosen this guy up, get him moving properly, just so he doesn't get injured on day one. A lot of these high school kids, especially the ones with kind of the tough dads or the very old school coaches, they go through high school just loading the bar, but they don't move properly. And then they get to college and we're just trying to do damage control, trying to undo all that damage. I mean, same at the NFL. We'll get players from all over the country and we'll see them lift, and right off the bat you can tell, all right, that guy came from a good college lifting program, that guy didn't. Just seeing their squat mechanics on day one.
Gotcha. Right now, with the amount of athletes that you coach, do you have goals to coach professionally for professional teams, or right now are you just focusing on college level athletes?
Yeah, so within strength and conditioning, NFL versus college, NFL is not necessarily a step up. A lot of the top college strength coaches are paid more than anyone in the NFL. And a large part of that's just very recruiting oriented at the college level. The strength coach is very involved in the recruiting and putting out a lot of the team propaganda. We have recruits and we're giving them weight room tours where strength staff's playing a role in the recruiting. NFL level, there's no recruiting. You don't necessarily have the big fancy facilities.
Wait, you don't have big fancy facilities in the NFL?
In the NFL, because in college you'll see a lot of these awesome facilities, and that's primarily put in place for recruiting purposes, trying to woo all the high school kids. And in the NFL, like I said, there's no recruiting. It just needs to be functional. So the NFL weight rooms they're very good in terms of function. They've got everything you need, but they're not necessarily big and flashy like where you might see at an SEC school. But there's pros and cons to both the college and the NFL level. NFL, you're working with the cream of the crop, the best of the best. You're playing for Super Bowls. You're dealing with grown men. In the college level, you may not be dealing with the same level of athlete as you in the NFL, but you're getting to spend a lot more time with those players. You're getting to develop them for 4 years, and you get a lot more time with them in the year at the college level. NFL, you got them for about 6 weeks in the off season, then they go off to their own guy, to their own trainers back home, and then we're in training camp. So you don't get as much time with them in the NFL, and a guy might be there for a year, he might be there for a few months before he's gone. At least in college, when we get the kid in, we've got him 3, 4, 5 years, and we can get him into our program. We can slow cook him and develop him over the course of years. So pros and cons to it. Something
people probably also don't realize about a strength coach is you're kind of the almost like the messenger or the person in between the player, a lot of times in between the player and the coach, the head coach and offensive, or maybe their position coach as well. And so I imagine that a lot of the guys come and just dump their problems on you because they're with you so much. You might be assisting them with stretching, or you might be just with them, warming them up for the weight room, or you're in there encouraging them to lift. So I'd imagine that that's a big part of it too. How do you guys cope with the mindset of a student athlete?
Yeah, so we, like you said, we unlike the position coaches who they only coach the players within their position, we see everyone. We're coaching everyone. We're with them year round. We're with them in the off season, and we're the only coaches on staff who don't have the power to determine whether they play or not. So we are often in a position where the players can kind of confide in us and talk with us and establish a relationship with us. And that's an important role for us, kind of being a mentor to some of these kids. Because a lot of these kids, they like I said, they come from all sorts of different backgrounds. A lot of them don't have a father in their life, they didn't have an important male figure in their life necessarily. So we get them in, and we, we're not just buddy with them, but we build a relationship with them. And if we see a guy who's got something going on, or we can tell something's wrong, or he's mentally in a bad spot, we'll pull him aside. We'll talk to him. We'll build him back up. Sometimes the strength coach gets seen as the guy, we're just going to run him into the ground. We're going to crush him, be hard on him. But no, we're trying to build these kids up too. We're trying to build confidence in these kids and trying to build trust with these kids, so they trust our program. So, they go to war for us, and they love coming into work. So that's a big part of it. And dealing with all these players, different personalities, we see a lot of different situations with these kids. So and we've got 5 coaches on our strength staff, and we each bring different things to the table. We all have different personalities. We come from different backgrounds, and so certain players might gravitate towards certain coaches on our staff, might go to they might have kind of their guy per se on our staff that they know they can trust, they can talk to, they have a good rapport with. So, I've kind of got my guys who, if they need to talk, if they need some extra help, they'll come to me, and other players might go to some of our other coaches.
When you were a kid, who were you the most obsessed with or amazed by, when you had your dad as a NFL player? But I would imagine there's probably a lot of situations where you get around the other players, and it might even be a player from another team. Like who was someone that you kind of idolized? I mean, I know, you probably did look up to your dad a lot, but your dad can't be your idol. You need to have somebody else, you see the kids at the end of games a lot of times getting autographs from LeBron James when they're, when their dad plays for the other team and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, my dad really was my idol, because growing up around in an NFL locker room, my dad was a player, a coach my whole life. I wasn't as, starry-eyed around the NFL players. It was normal for me to be around a lot of those superstars. So I looked up to them. I wanted to be in their shoes, but I didn't necessarily see them in that same celebrity status as I think most people would. So for me, growing up, it was my dad. I just wanted to impress my dad. I wanted to follow in his footsteps and make him proud. And I learned just about everything I knew from him. But then once my interests kind of started shifting away from football and more to the strength sport world, then I started, where most kids grow up, their heroes are the football players. For me, the football player was just normal. I see them every day. So I started my heroes became the lifters, the top strongman, Mariusz Pudzianowski and Brian Shaw and Big Z and them, and then seeing some of the top powerlifters. And then, even you, watching it's been a dream to be on the Powercast. So, my idols, my athlete idols became lifters later in my life.
Well, when we get off this podcast, you can apologize to your dad from me, saying that I'm sorry that I derailed your NFL career and made you into a lifter and strength coach. I fucked everything up.
You played a big part in that.
Yeah, do you have, like, as a coach now, do you have any because like you compete in strongman and powerlifting, so like you're a big guy and big guys do really well in strongman. So do you have any, I guess, big strongman goals athletically?
Long term, I'd like to deadlift 900. That's kind of, I'd like to do have a 400 plus pound log clean and press. Mm-hmm. But in strongman, it's less about the individual lift numbers. It's more about the contest wins. Powerlifting, it's all about the numbers, the records, with your squat, bench, deadlift, your total. In strongman, it's less about the individual events, more about how many Arnolds have you won, how many World's Strongest Mans have you won, how many Giants Lives have you gone on the podium for. So, I'd like to, before it's all said and done, I want to get on the podium at some important competitions. If I could, I'm realistic with everything. I know there's only a handful of guys who can make it to World's Strongest Man, and you've got to push the envelope of what the human body is capable of. I'd probably have to be pushing the 400-pound mark in order to get to World's Strongest Man and compete with those guys, especially at my height. But I don't necessarily have any goals other than to just become the strongest human that I can become and get as good as I can possibly get and just build myself into the biggest freak that I can possibly get to. And however high that ceiling ends up being, as long as I just maximize my potential, I'll be happy, because, I don't want to set expectations that exceed what I could ever be capable of. And I don't want to set expectations that are lower than what I could be capable of. So right now I'm just pursuing progress, and I'm going to keep doing that till the day I die.
Yeah. 900-pound deadlift. Damn. What are you deadlifting now?
Low 800s.
Jesus.
So I've been doing strongman now. This is my second year of strongman. Once I got done playing football is when I started really training, as a lifter. I haven't trained the deadlift all that long in my life. So I think I've got, my training age is still relatively young, at least in terms of strongman events and the power lifts. So we'll see what I can end up doing.
That's kind of crazy progress, though, to be deadlifting low 800s and you haven't been deadlifting for that long. Like, that progression's kind of insane.
Yeah, I'm built for it. My long arms are very good for me. My squat is nowhere near my deadlift. These long legs weren't built for squatting, but that's why I transitioned from powerlifting over to strongman. It just until I found a strongman gym, I didn't know how to get into strongman, because they've got so many specialty events, specialty equipment. I didn't know any of the technique for it. So I started out in powerlifting. I knew I was built more for strongman. It wasn't until I stumbled upon the strongman gym that I train at now, and built a relationship with the strongman competitors over there that I really even got into it.
Real quick, I want to get back to the strongman, but again, for coaches that are listening to you, you mentioned how you deal with all of these different types of players, and obviously you had you were able to have experiences with working with Coach House and working around other great coaches. But are there any books or resources that you read that helped you learn how to deal better with athletes? Not the strength and conditioning side of things and programming, but being able to deal with the human side of athletes. Is there anything that helped you with that?
As far as literature of it, not a whole lot. Okay. I'm a firm believer that when it comes to coaching, experience is gonna trump everything. Just having experience coaching on the floor, being around athletes, building that confidence about speaking in front of a group and commanding a room. I think that's going to develop you as a strength coach more than anything in the academic realm ever will. Not to say that you shouldn't learn the ins and outs of the the physiology and the psychology of all this, but I really think just being on the floor, coaching, and just teaching someone how to lift, even whether it's an NFL player, a college player, or a middle schooler. When I worked in the private sector, I was working with primarily high school kids, middle school kids, and that was extremely valuable experience to me because I learned how to coach a younger kid they're not as mature, they're not necessarily as locked in, they're certainly not as athletic, or they don't have the same kind of body control or attention span as a full-grown man does, whose job it is to be in their training. Gaining experience just coaching kids from a young age up to the professional level, that gave me a ton of experience and working with different personalities, people coming from different backgrounds, just kind of learning how to talk to anyone, how to connect with anyone. That's been the biggest thing for me as far as developing as a coach on the floor, more than any book possibly could, in my opinion.
How do you deal with taller athletes, when it comes to like a squat, and then how did you, build up some of your own strength being a taller athlete? Because it is kind of difficult, and it can be kind of confusing to organize a 6'7" body when it comes to something like a squat. So do you have them squat onto maybe like a box at first and keep them up high, or what are some things that you try with them?
Yeah. So when a freshman comes into this program, we start them on a very, very basic teaching program. They're not even squatting with a barbell for the first month. Like our group of freshmen that just came in right now, they're doing kettlebell goblet squats. So we're just teaching them the basic mechanics of that. And when they kind of graduate from the kettlebell to a barbell front squat, and then once they've mastered the front squat, then we'll start looking at putting the bar on their back. But a lot of these taller guys, especially our tall, very skinny, lanky receivers who have very long legs, sometimes the answer is just we can't force him into a back squat because that's just not a good movement for him. It's not a movement that is going to work well with that guy. So we've got several alternative forms of squatting. We might have a guy be a safety bar squatter. We might, getting that more of that high bar position, just some of those taller guys, the safety squat bar tends to allow them to squat with a more upright torso, and that movement is a lot better for them. Other guys, they might be a front squatter their whole career. Some guys, the worst, if a guy's just a terrible squatter, we cannot make it work. We might even have them on a belt squat, especially if they're a guy who deals with a lot of low back issues. But a squat movement is the foundation of our program, but we're not going to force a kid to do a barbell back squat if that's just not a good movement for how he is built. So just evaluating a kid from the day he gets in, starting with the kettlebell goblet squat, just getting a sense of, okay, how does this kid move? How is he built? And then just finding a movement that clicks with them, finding just a squat variation that they can do safely, that they can get a lot out of, that puts them in a good position, a good posture. And then once we find that movement that kind of clicks perfectly for them, all right, then we build off of that. But we're not going to try to force them just to contort themselves, into a bad position with a barbell back squat if they're not built for it. Me personally, I was able to make a back squat work, getting a more narrow stance and just hammering just proper knee tracking and really learning how to properly brace my core. I was able to become I'm not necessarily the strongest squatter, but I'm a pretty good squatter in terms of positioning and technique and control and all that. But some of these guys, they're just not going to be a barbell back squatter.
How do you help beef some of these guys up? How do you help, these guys gain some weight? Because you mentioned a couple, some of the players being thin.
Yeah, so we've got nutritionists here on the team. We serve meals all day at the team, and we're the strength staff this season. We are hammering the nutrition. So this morning, myself and two of our interns, we made 120 pre-workout shakes for the guys. Just a shake with, some carbs, some quick digesting protein to get pre-lift. And then we're making shakes for them to have post-lift. And any of the weight gain guys, the guys that we've identified as needing to gain weight, we make them a special weight gain shake. And then, the nutritionists are up in the cafeteria, the strength staff will go up there, and we're just echoing, hey guys, fill your plate. Lean protein source, complex carb, healthy fat, fill that plate, trying to get a whole food meal every 3 to 4 hours. So, when the players are in the building, we're echoing just in their ear, whole food meals. All right. We're pushing our shakes around our training. We've got a million different snack stations set up around the stadium. The lunch and dinner, it is a full-fledged buffet line. For breakfast, they've got a menu. They can text in their order, and the cooks will have it bagged and prepared for them, ready just to pick up, take to class. So we're able to provide a ton of resources with our nutrition, with our food. The issue is we're not with the kids all day. We're not with them when they go home on the weekend in the off season. And a lot of these kids, they're young, a lot of bad habits growing up. They're not used to having to eat a meal every 3-4 hours. So just teaching them, explaining to them, making them learn why it's important for them, and then just hammering, echoing over and over in their ear, just making it a habit for them to eat whole food meals every few hours, not just gas station snacks, not just ordering a pizza on the weekend, but having 4 whole food meals daily.
No.
So we're working on it.
What about when you have some fatties on the team?
Oh yeah.
You get the fat kid table and they only get served a certain amount of food type thing.
Right. So with the guys who we want to lose weight, we can't force a kid to eat anything. We can't force a kid not to eat anything, but we take a very positive, encouraging approach with that. When we've got our linemen up in the cafeteria, I'm walking around, I'm eyeing plates, hey, let's, maybe we don't need the fried Twinkies today. Maybe we don't need the fettuccine Alfredo that they're serving. And then we weigh the guys in every week in season. We'll weigh them in twice a week. We're keeping an eye on that weight. We're sending the position coach report on their body weight. The position coach is going to have a big say in kind of setting a goal weight for every player. And then, if need be, if a player is just really falling behind on a weight goal, whether that's losing or gaining weight, we're gonna be in their ear. We're gonna be in their ear, and if it becomes a persistent issue, there might be some extra motivation physically.
Damn. Okay. Have you guys ever had to deal with like athletes that come in and they, I guess, like let's say they just choose they don't want to eat meat, or meat isn't like part of their diet or anything like that?
Yeah.
Special considerations, is that common or no?
So, and with the majority of the players, no, but we do have players who've got specialty diets. We've got some of the Muslim players don't eat pork.
Yeah.
We've got a kid on the team who's a vegan. So if there's someone on the team who's, for whatever reason, they have a specialty needs diet, we're going to accommodate that. We're never, if a player's a vegan, we're not going to force them to eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
If a player's eating a diet for religious purposes, we're certainly not going to, try to force them out of that. So if a player has something like that going on, we're going to do our best to work with them and just optimize their situation. But, if we have a player who just comes up, hey, I read about this diet online, I want to try it. Okay, we're going to sit down and talk to them and determine if that's really optimal for them.
Yeah.
But with some of those specialty needs diets, we work around it. We accommodate them.
Yeah. No, I remember when I was playing soccer, like I never really thought of the coach's perspective, because being an athlete on campus, you can get yourself into a lot of stuff on weekends. Like there's a lot of drinking. There's a lot of that just happens. Now,
yeah.
When that happens with players often, how do you guys reprimand that issue? or deal with that? Because or is that even something that you guys have to deal with a lot of, or have you just set up a culture that's so great that it's not? I mean, it's uncommon.
Well, if any strength staff can establish a culture to where the college kids aren't drinking and partying on the weekends at all, give them a Nobel Prize. It's something we deal with. I mean, these kids are in college. We don't want to deny them a college experience. We're not gonna tell the kids, hey, you can't go out on the weekends. Hey, you can't drink a beer or something like that. Assuming they're of age. But every Friday in the off season, Friday, the last training day of the week before they go off on the weekend, we bring them in and we give them a talk. Hey, when you go home this weekend, you got to be smart with women. You got to be smart with alcohol. You got to make the right decisions. When you come back on Monday, we're getting right back into it. We'll be right back out there conditioning, lifting hard. You want to make it to the NFL, you got to start treating yourself like a professional. You got to start taking a professional approach to this. We know these kids, they're on their own for the first time. They're in college. They're going to have some fun. We want them to enjoy their life. But we're just explaining to them the importance of, hey, you got to start being professional. You want to win games. You want to go to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You got to start treating your body right. And especially in this day and age, I mean, you got to be careful with how you treat women. You got to be, you're always on camera. Anything you do out at the bar, rest assured someone will catch it on video with a cell phone, and it'll be on Twitter, within an hour. So just echoing these guys, you're always being watched. All eyes are constantly on you. You've got to be a good representative of this university and representative of this program and of your family.
Yeah.
In our team meetings, our head football coach, Mac Brown, he'll often pull up a news clip, throw it up on the projector screen of, player at another college getting arrested, or, NC State player getting a DUI or whatever. He'll put that up on the screen and say, hey, this is what happens when you do this. You're going to get caught, and there's going to be teams around the country are going to be throwing this up on a projector screen, warning their players not to make the same mistake. So, we do the best we can just to try to explain to these guys that all of their actions have consequences and can affect the rest of their life. So luckily for us, we've got a great group of guys, and we haven't had any major issues with that lately. Knock on wood.
What's your diet like? You mentioned you were much heavier when you were playing. How'd you knock off the weight, and what do you eat currently?
So I'm actually not heavier than when I was a player. I'm just heavier or lighter than I normally am going into a strongman season. I played around 315. My last strongman competition, I weighed around 350, 355. I started working with a diet coach. His name's Justin Harris with Troponin Nutrition.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
A bodybuilder,
professional
coach.
bodybuilder.
Yeah, he's the guy that got Dave Tate shredded.
Yeah.
Several years back. So anyway, I got hooked up with him. I've been working with him now, and he's got me very lean. This is the first time I've weighed over 300 pounds and had abs.
We lost him there a bit.
I've gone into
Hopefully he comes back.
Oh no.
We're losing you a little bit if you can still hear us. Oh my God.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're coming back in. Yep, there we go. We lost you for a little bit. We lost you when you started talking about the meaning of life.
Yeah, but I've always just dirty bulked up for strongman, thinking I got to, keep up with the 400 pounders. And I've always just eaten everything in sight, ballooned up. I'll get stronger initially, but then I start feeling like crap. Performance declines, and it ends up being a bad decision. Then I'm just trying to undo the damage for the next few months. So this year, I've really gone into this year with the mindset nutrition is going to be a top priority year round. I'm gonna compete lean, and I'm gonna be in shape. And so far, it's really paying off. Justin Harris, I mean, he's done an amazing job with me.
Yeah, the recovery from those workouts is really tough, and if your nutrition is off, It can really, I mean, same thing with powerlifting. I think a lot of lifters, they want to kind of just, eat donuts and stuff. And I do think there's some room for a little bit of that stuff, especially when you're trying to gain weight. But you don't want to do so much of it that it negatively impacts your energy levels throughout the day, or even worse, negatively impacts your sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. When I got heavy, I mean, I started developing sleep apnea. I mean, you get so big up top, and my sleep quality declined. My training declined. I was out of shape. I wasn't recovering very well. It felt awful. But I mean, now that I'm a good bit lighter, leaner, I had to deal with the first few months losing a good bit of strength. Had to be patient with that. But now I'm as strong as I was when I was 350. But I'm in shape. I'm lean. My energy is great. My sleep is great. He's Justin, he does a carb cycling approach. So we've got low carb days, medium carb days, high carb days. And that's been a really effective way to kind of keep my appetite in check and keep my insulin sensitivity high and keep me lean while being able to build strength.
So you mentioned like the goal is to get heavier, right? So like, how are you guys going to do that without getting too fat in the process?
Yeah, so I'm 25 years old right now. We're taking a long-term, slow approach to it. We figure, if I can put on 50 pounds of good weight over the course of the next few years, then I'm going to be in a good spot. I'm trying to be just the most muscular, 350, 370 down the road that I can be. Just with my frame, I can carry a lot of mass. I can carry a lot of muscle. And, I want to get into those upper 300s, being relatively lean. I know I'm not going to be sub 10% body fat competing at World's Strongest Man. I'm going to have to put on a little bit of padding, a little bit of fluff. But just over the long term, just taking a slow process, playing the long game, building as much muscle as possible over the course of the next several years while I'm still young. If I want to compete with the Half Thors and the Brian Shaws, I can't be a soft-bodied 400. I've got to be a rocked-up 400.
Yeah.
So, playing the long game.
What do you think of the current state of like powerlifting and strongman? People have just gotten so strong. It's just been absolutely insane. You go to the Arnold Classic and you see it's very common for people to do 1,000-pound deadlifts nowadays.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be, an up-and-comer in the world of strength sports, because you've got records falling left and right. You've got freaks coming out of the woodwork. I mean, you look at the USAPL, some of these young 20-something-year-old kids are coming out of nowhere and just putting up these crazy totals. You've got in the strongman world, these dudes are monsters. So it's, it's exciting for me. It's just exciting to feel like I'm in the mix of all this, and I can be the next guy that bursts onto the scene, Are you a professional strongman right now, or you haven't gotten your pro card yet, or what's the deal with that? No, I've got to earn my pro card this year.
Cool.
I'm doing my next competition's April 25th. As long as I win that, that's an Arnold qualifier, and then from there, just got to get on the podium at the Arnold Amateur, and that gives me a pro card and a Giants Live invite.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you handle your own programming for your strongman, or do you have like another person that does that for you?
So I do my own strength programming. Like I said, work with a coach on my diet, and then the owner of the strongman gym that I train at, his name's James Deffenbaugh. He's a pro strongman, competes primarily in the middleweight class. He won America's Strongest Man in the middleweights 2 years ago. He has been a big mentor to me within strongman. As far as learning all the technique and just learning how to approach training for the events, he played a big part of kind of teaching me that. And then whenever I write a program going into a competition, I'll run it by him. Just say, hey, what do you think of this, or any changes you'd make? And a lot of times he's got some good input. We'll kind of work together on setting up the training split. And I mean, he's awesome. Whenever one of the members of his gym is training for a big competition, a strongman competition, he'll set up his own schedule to where he can train with us. Line up his schedule and just hop in and train with us, push us, because I mean he's strong as an ox, and I've learned just about everything I know in strongman from him. And then if there's ever a specialty piece of equipment that we've got in an upcoming contest, he'll go out and order it for us. We've got a lot of strong dudes at the gym that I train at.
That's awesome.
How the Kansas City Chiefs going to slow down that monster running back from the Titans?
Derrick Henry. I know Derrick.
That's a big boy right there.
He played at a rival high school to me. I'm from Florida, and we played his school every year. And he was just a one-man team. He'd literally line up in Wildcat. He had a group of tiny offensive linemen. He'd just take a direct snap and run it every single play. Absolute monster. I mean, the Chiefs will have their work cut out stopping him, especially seeing what he did to the Patriots.
Yeah, it should be a good game. What team did your teams did your dad play for?
He was drafted in the first round by the Seahawks. He played there for 5 years before going to the Chicago Bears. Played there for 5 years and then finished with the Washington Redskins in the last 2 seasons.
Oh, cool. Who's the biggest mutant you've ever worked with, pro or college? Because you probably have been around some real genetic freaks. The guys that barely even train; they just do the bare minimum every day, and they're jacked and strong and fast and everything.
I'd have to go with Julius Peppers when I was with the Panthers. I mean, you talk about a guy he was in his 16th season in the NFL. I mean, as a defensive lineman, so it's not like he's a quarterback where he's only taking a couple of hits a game. He's on the line of scrimmage. His body's taking a beating, and I mean he's about my height, maybe 290, jacked, fast, strong. I mean, and he was in his late 30s, and just the things that he could do athletically, just I've never seen before. And when it came to his training in the weight room, just house called it small doses of excellence. I mean, he would do very little at his age. He didn't practice a whole lot anymore. Not very minimal volume in the weight room, but I mean, he could take that little bit of stimulus and I mean, do what no one else can do with that. And just being able to maintain that body and that athleticism and his speed and strength at his age after 16 years of NFL plus 4 years of college before that, it was amazing.
Does that ever make you wonder? I mean, I guess you don't, if you don't have to have that much volume, that's awesome. But what if you did do a little bit more? Does it make you wonder, or just like you think it's not necessary?
Well, I mean, for a guy like that, I mean, who's at the pinnacle of, the very tippy top of the world of athletics. Yeah. I mean, you can't really go much higher from there. He's a Pro Bowler every year. He played as long as you could ever hope a defensive lineman could play. He'll be a Hall of Famer. So I don't think he could get much higher in his career. I don't know if he could have played 20 years, but I mean, that's an interesting question with some of these players who get by with kind of the bare minimum with their training, with practice. Yeah, it does beg the question, could they be at an even higher level if they're pushing themselves harder in the weight room? I don't know. With some of those guys who, they're so fast, they're so fast twitch. They're kind of like a race car where if you push them too hard, too fast, they burn out. So I with some of those very tip top athletes, they respond better to, a little goes a long way with some of those guys. Whereas if you try to push them with too much, they kind of burn themselves out.
Yeah. And you might be kind of overstressing them a little bit just because they're not interested. They don't really want to do it. And so, continually like being forceful with that is like a stressor, right?
Yeah. I mean, Julius Peppers at that point in his career, I'm sure he's had a dozen different strength coaches, played for been in a million different programs. I'm sure getting a little monotonous to him at that point, but just having that level of professionalism to do what needs to be done every single year for that long and keep plugging. I mean, all the respect in the world to him.
Did you coach Steve Smith?
No, he left shortly before I got there.
Gone.
I wish I did. I mean, he was a Panthers legend, and House would talk about him all the time. I wish I'd gotten the chance to coach him.
Yeah, I played with him at Santa Monica City College, and that's the hardest I've ever been hit, whether it was pro wrestling or otherwise. I mean, he was just so damn fast. This guy's like, I don't know, what is he, 180 pounds or something like that, right?
He's small.
He was not heavy. But he hit me with that 4.3 speed, and I knew what was going on, or didn't know what was going on after that.
When you've got someone who's fast and has just a kill mindset, and just can cut loose and just deliver a shot, I mean, you can take a big hit from a small body.
Yeah, he was just hyper aggressive, and I think that's something that plays out in the football field. Like the guy, like you're talking about, these guys that are aggressive tend to be more explosive. The guys that aren't scared to kind of stick their nose in there, and they somehow don't get hurt too. Maybe they have a little bit better coordination or technique, or maybe they have a little better flexibility than the next person, or just a little higher up athleticism. And then even with someone like a Julius Peppers, maybe somebody like him, maybe he's just in better tune with his body. So he's like, Coach, I don't really think I need that. And who knows, maybe he's somewhat right. Maybe he doesn't need it,
That's very true. A lot of those guys, when they're late in their career, we're not telling them what to do. We're kind of asking them, hey, what do you feel like you need? Or how does this movement feel for you? Do we need to modify this? So with those older guys at the NFL level, the strength coach, you got to work with them a lot, figure out what works best for them. Because like you said, at that point in their career, oftentimes they know what works for them. They know what they need. They know what clicks well for them. And so you got to listen to that. And accommodate them in that realm. Like Julius Peppers, he was on a completely different program than most of the other players in that weight room were. But in his 16th season, he knows which movements feel good in his body, which movements prepare him well for the upcoming game. So we used a lot of his input to tailor his program to him.
Interesting that you guys use a bench press. A lot of strength coaches shy away from it because it tends to stress the shoulders of some athletes. So how'd you guys land on utilizing the bench press to help strengthen up the athletes as well?
Yeah, so we've the bench press can be a dangerous movement. It can be a movement that causes shoulder issues. And if we ever have a guy who's got issues like that, we'll use a bench block with them. We'll shorten the range of motion. We might put them on a neutral grip bench or just do like a dumbbell movement with them. But for most of our guys, we place a big emphasis on teaching the bench press properly, teaching the setup of the bench press properly, how to tuck your shoulders, bench with a tight upper back. And we'll do a lot of posterior shoulder work, a lot of rear delt work in our movement prep. We're getting that shoulder very well prepared. We're getting that rotator cuff prepared. So I think if you take a conscientious approach to your movement prep before a bench press, if you take the time to teach the athletes how to properly set up for a bench press, how to control the bar, how to keep your feet planted, keep your whole body tight, tuck your elbows, that eliminates a lot of the issues that a lot of people run into with the bench. And then a lot of times in a lot of programs, you'll see a program that it's all push oriented, not enough pulling. So we place a big emphasis on we're gonna do the same amount, if not more volume on our pulling movements than we are on our pushing movements. And that's going to play a huge role in keeping those guys, that shoulder healthy and keeping guys from getting rounded forward, getting tight pecs and things of that nature. So luckily we've been able to train the bench press all year. Guys have gotten stronger from it. We've kept and they've stayed healthy.
We just had Chris Duffin in here, and when you were talking about that, it had us thinking was because a lot of his equipment, apparently, a lot of pro teams use his stuff. Do you guys use any of his equipment, like the Cadillac bar or the cool trap bar that he has now?
So we actually have not yet, but we are looking at the transformer bar.
Yeah.
I've used the transformer bar and some of the Kabuki strength equipment, and I love that thing. So we may be getting some of those transformer bars. So right now we don't have any of that. We got a whole brand new weight room this year. Spent a lot of money on it. So our budget has been somewhat limited on the amount of extra equipment we can buy. But we're always looking at new equipment, looking at the innovations in the world of strength training, and looking at new things that we can incorporate. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Exogenie. It's a lot of the strongmen use it to simulate a truck pull. It's called an Exogenie. It's basically a long tether cable that feeds through a coil, and you can adjust the resistance on it. So you can do resisted sprints, or you can set the resistance so high that it's truck pull level resistance. That's a new piece of equipment that we just incorporated within the team. That's something that we found in the world of strongman.
You guys got any slingshots or hip circles laying around over there?
Oh yeah. We're big fans of the hip circle. We don't do any slingshot work right now, but big on the hip circle.
Cool.
Coach Kenn with the Panthers, big on the hip circle,
right.
Big on the slingshot. A lot of the veteran players with the Panthers, some of those older guys who were really trying to keep their shoulders healthy, or maybe they've had some history of injuries. A lot of those guys were benching on the slingshot.
Awesome. Andrew, you got anything over there?
Actually, yeah, I do. Sorry, after I clear my throat. I honestly didn't watch it, but I want to get your take on last night's NCAA championship.
Yeah, so I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't even watch the entire game. There's just part of me just watching other college football teams play. It's hard for me not to watch it and kind of resent the fact that it's not us, and resent the fact that we didn't beat Clemson, because we played them this year and it came down to the wire. It came down to a 2-point conversion for us and we ended up losing that game. So, I was cheering for Clemson. I was cheering for the ACC. But I've seen LSU play this whole year. I've been watching Joe Burrow. I had a feeling that they were going to be unstoppable, and sure enough, they were. So, but I had no dog in that fight other than pulling for the ACC.
Mac Brown is a legendary coach. You must be learning a lot of great things by some of his example. What are maybe a couple things that you're learning from Coach Brown?
He is the best football coach that I've ever been around my entire life. When our previous staff got let go, and we heard they're bringing in Coach Brown, I didn't know what to think. He had been out of coaching for a few years. He had been on the television side of things, but he came in and he has played such a big role in turning this program around. He's such a good mentor. He talks about, when you come to Carolina, it's not just a 4-year decision; it's a 40-year decision, because he's trying to develop young men, trying to develop good people, and it's not just all about football here. We're trying to develop good men, good fathers, good sons, and good students. And I think a lot of these guys, they've coach what Mac Brown has done. He's setting them up for life. And, he speaks to the team in all of our team meetings every day, and there often be a life lesson. And, I've grown as a man just from being around him. But underneath all that, he will always echo, none of this works if we're not winning games. We've got to win games. And, he's created a family environment in the stadium. He's created a brotherhood where people come in, love to work. But it's also understood, if you're someone who's getting in the way of this team's success, you're going to be gone. Everything we do, we want a family in here that's all working towards the same goal. We're all working towards winning. We're all on the same page. And if you're someone who's not on that page, who's not buying in, all right, well, he's going to help you leave. So just the environment around here, it's been a complete 180 from what it was ever since he got hired here. And I think every player on this team, and even the coaches, we're all growing as men. both as a coach and just a person.
You're one of the younger people on the staff, because you mentioned you're 25. Are there other like younger coaches on the staff?
So I'm the youngest one on the strength staff. There's some other coaches on the football side who are in their first few years of coaching, working their way up. As far as the full-time position coaches, they're all significantly older. In the coaching world, especially on the actual position coaching side of things, there's a long ladder to climb. You're spending years working for free, potentially just building up your connections, because so many people want to be coaches now, and there's only so many positions available out there. So it's a tough road to become a coach on the football side of things.
We have a mutual big fat friend in JP Price. How'd you run into JP Price?
So I found out about JP through the Powercast. I heard him on your podcast, and my family lives in Kansas City. My dad's coaching over there, and when I listened to his appearance on the podcast and heard he was in Kansas City, and he sounded like an awesome dude, so I just hit him up on Instagram. I said, "Hey, I heard you on the Powercast. My family lives in Kansas City. I'm a lifter myself. I'd love to come by and check out your gym, pick your brain." And he got right back to me. So I've built a relationship with him and Ryan Silva and all those guys over at his gym, and he's got an awesome gym out there. He's a great dude. So now anytime I'm in Kansas City, I'll go over to his gym, hang out with those guys, get a lift in, try to pick his brain a little bit.
He's a hell of a squatter. He came here and squatted 700 pounds with the safety squat bar for a triple.
I know.
With chains on the bar. It was just like he did it so effortless too. It was wild.
I know. He's incredible, and he's hilarious too.
I'm super proud of him too. He's lost a lot of weight. He had some pretty bad injuries, and then he's done a good job of kind of rehabbing that. How do you guys deal with injuries over there? Because that's got to be a big thing. We were just talking about, when somebody goes down on the field, it's like that maybe somebody's kind of maybe held responsible. Or you guys feel responsible when someone tweaks a hammy or something like that on the field?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on the strength staff when it comes to the injury side of things. Because, I mean, a big part of our job, at least the way the football coaches see it, is we've got to keep the guys healthy. So we do a lot of work really trying to reinforce guys' hamstrings, really strengthen their posterior chain. Hamstring issues, that's a very common one. Lower back issues, that's a very common one. And in football, there's certain injuries that you just can't prevent. The strength staff, we can't prevent a concussion, or if you get rolled up on awkwardly, blow your knee out. Well, it's not really something that we could prepare them for, but we can certainly play a big role in getting it back. So when a player gets hurt, it's very important for the strength staff to have a very good relationship with our athletic training staff, with the sports medicine guys. We've got a very good rapport with them. We're in constant communication with them, just setting up a return to play program for the players. And then on our strength staff, we've got a guy who kind of his designated role is he works with all those return to play guys. So he's working very closely with the athletic trainers. And then as the injured players start to be able to do more and more, he's working with them. As soon as they can touch a weight, they're being sent to Coach Blue to start putting them through our return to play program. And depending on the injury, that program will look very different. If you're a shoulder guy, a knee guy, or a sports hernia, we've got different protocols in place for those types of injuries.
I mean, this is gonna suck. These two know me for like not watching much football and not knowing much about the sport, which is sad. But what I've noticed, or I think I've noticed, is that the sport has evolved to kind of help the players be safer. Now, is there anything that's continuing to change in terms of, I don't know, apparel that they wear on the field, or rules that causes the players to be safer? And is that making the game itself worse or better? Because I've heard from like big football fans that they think it's a little bit softer now than it used to be.
Yeah, so a lot of the rules that are in place as far as player health involve head-to-head contact, trying to eliminate some of the concussion issues, because as information about CTE, you know, the long-term effects of head collisions and the long-term effects of concussions, as a lot of that information has kind of been surfacing here in these past few years, there's been a little bit hysteria might be the right word surrounding it. And there have been some rule changes, some very strict rules put in place regarding the legality of certain hits. You know, now if you lead with the crown of your helmet to deliver a head-to-head blow, not only is that going to be a penalty, but you're going to be ejected. And the refs will be able to go back and actually, that's a reviewable penalty now. You know, if there's a really violent blow that looks like it was potentially head-to-head, the ref is going to usually default to throwing the flag, and they're going to review the play, and they're going to review whether or not it was indeed head-to-head, and if it was, that player's ejected, that player's gone. So that, I mean, that's a big deal. And in college, if you get ejected in the second half of a game, well, you'll actually lose eligibility for the first half of the next game. So on the one hand, we definitely want to eliminate concussions. We want to eliminate some of these egregious head-to-head blows on defenseless receivers and things like that. And that's definitely a positive. But on the other hand, football is a violent game. Football is a game of collisions. That's why it's popular. That's why people love it. And, you know, I think when you're making players think twice a little bit about delivering that blow when a receiver's coming across the middle, and players, I think, are a little bit unclear of what constitutes a legal hit and what constitutes a hit that could get them ejected from the game. So, you know, I think it may have been a little bit of an overcorrection at times. I think sometimes there have been some ejections, some flags, and then the NFL level, some fines given to players for hits that, you know, in my opinion, I thought looked clean, looked legal. And I think that's gotten the fans upset at times as well. So, you know, it's a tightrope to walk. On the one hand, you want to keep players safe. You don't want to see guys getting CTE later in their life. But on the other hand, the fans are paying to see a violent game. They're paying to see grown men hit each other at high speed. And if you take away from that too much, you're going to kind of take away from the integrity of the sport. So, you know, it's a tightrope. We'll see how it continues to unfold over the years.
With your job, I think it's so important, you know, that you're, you know, teaching the athletes about their nutrition, their hydration. Your hydration can play big into concussions, and then also fatigue. You know, you said that earlier that you can't really control a concussion, but I actually think that you probably are preventing many concussions and maybe just not even recognizing it, because when your guys are in better shape for the fourth quarter, they're in a better position to make that tackle or to catch the ball and then maybe elude the tackler. Then maybe they're a step faster. Maybe their ankles are just a little bit more powerful so they can make that cut at the right time. I know, you know, just playing any sport that I've ever done, you know, anytime I've been tired or anytime my mind drifted somewhere else, because I wasn't sure about something, then it did lead to me getting jacked up in a pretty bad way.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. You know, when you're fatigued and you're slowing down a little bit or you're hesitant on the field, that's oftentimes where you'll run into trouble with some of those injuries. Whereas if you're flying around, you're engaged, you're, you know, in good shape, where you can make the proper cut, you can control your body better, you can, like you said, elude some of those hits. And then you also touched on the hydration. That's a huge part of what we do here. I mean, we literally have an objective hydration test in place that the players take daily. We have a urine test that the players will do, and now we've moved over to a saliva test that actually gives us a little monitor, reads their hydration levels, and gives us an objective some objective feedback on that. And that's a report that we'll give to the coaches, that the strength staff and the athletic trainers will have eyes on. So we're getting a number on players' hydration levels going into practice or going into a lift. So if we've got a guy who we see is dehydrated, we can jump on him quick before it becomes an issue.
Do you have these guys supplement any sort of electrolytes, add salt to anything, or are they just kind of drinking more water?
Oh yeah, we're pushing the electrolytes big time at every single table up in the cafeteria. We've got a big shaker of Himalayan pink salt. We're pushing the salt hard. We've got electrolyte supplements all over the stadium. In our weight room, we've got a supplement called the Right Stuff. I mean, it's like 1.5 grams of sodium and potassium and just like a little gel packet.
Wow.
It tastes terrible. It tastes terrible. But you take it like a shot, and I mean, you're loaded up with electrolytes. And we've got refrigerators all around the stadium with Gatorades, and we've got Gatorade Endurances, which are higher, more sodium, more potassium in them. So we're pushing the electrolytes hard.
The Right Stuff. Never heard of that one.
Yeah.
The Right Stuff. Yeah, look into it. That stuff's awesome. Like I said, tastes terrible, but I take it pre-training, and it makes a big difference.
Cool. Well, you know what? We're going to be out at the Arnold Classic, and we'll be out at that Arnold Sports Festival this year, and hopefully we run into you. Hopefully you're up on that stage competing.
Yeah, that's the plan.
It's going to be hard to
And I'll
miss.
be looking for you guys.
Yeah. Great talking to you today. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Like I said, this has been a dream of mine for years.
Awesome, man. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
Take care. Damn, that's a big boy.
6'7", 310. My
Man.
God. I was like 6'4", 6'5". No, 6'7".
Yeah, that's a big guy. I hope he never comes here.
Yeah. Oh God.
He'll make us look like shit.
Yo, I really feel like, okay, he's 25. He still
Dude,
said
he's
that
25.
he still said that he's new in his lifting career, right? And he used to be 350, deadlifts 800. I really honestly think that if he, he's going to train hard, he's going to get stronger. He really could be on that big stage
Oh yeah,
because he's just genetically made for that
You
shit.
see him like scratching his face in this giant, it's like a goddamn baseball glove.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's crazy. I wonder what his brother's like then too.
He's probably a big old mutant too.
Yeah. Shoot.
Damn.
That was awesome though. It was cool. Like, I mean, we've heard this from other strength coaches, but it's cool that they're not like forcing people that just don't squat well to squat. I remember when I was in college, like they would make
you're squatting.
They would make guys squat that you're just like, that doesn't look right. Oh God.
Yeah, and then for some reason they never take the weight off either. You're like, can we take a plate off so the guy can move the right way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he had a lot of great insight, and it's just, I think it's just so highly relatable to any other career that you're going to do too. It takes time to get there. It takes a lot of work, and fortunately for him, his dad was a football player, and so that helped open up some doors for him. But then also him putting in the work and him putting in the time in himself, where he's not 6'7" and some big sloppy guy. Coming in trying to be a strength coach. He's in great shape, and he's, deadlifting over 800 pounds.
Yeah, and I love what he was talking about when he started working under Coach House. Like he was washing shaker cups, but he knew like I need to be the best guy at washing shaker cups. Like he just knew like that's just step one. It's not like I didn't, because you hear people like they get all these certifications, they get all this experience or whatever, or lack of experience, I should say, but they put in a lot of time.
Mhm.
Like I didn't work all this hard to come, make shakes. Like, no, that's not what I'm here for. But he's like, no, I knew that I was just going to have to step up and stand out, above everyone else. And I thought that was fantastic because that's something anybody can apply anywhere right now.
Yeah. A lot of jobs, that's going to be the case. You're going to be working for free for a while before you start making a dime.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like, he, like his dad's a great coach too, but it's not like he used that to do it. Like he still started from the bottom in terms of what he was doing, which is pretty damn awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he was lucky, but he still put himself in a situation to like do something with it.
Yeah.
So
It's weird. That like that's weird stuff when someone tells me they've been listening to me and then and somehow like influenced his career path, which I'm sure a lot of that was in his subconscious anyway. And who knows, he might have gotten stimulated by somebody else watching somebody else's video too. But that's pretty just weird, just cool but weird. Mm-hmm. I could picture him picture his dad being pretty pissed.
Mark like, Bell, you're the one.
Yeah, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Well, Dad, it's this guy on YouTube, been watching all these powerlifting videos.
He told me to go fuck my elbow, and that's who I want to, that's who's inspiring me to quit.
Oh, man.
Dad just so confused. 20 years down the drain. Training you, timing you, making you lift in the basement, all that stuff.
All that good stuff.
God.
Anyway, today is day number 14 of World Carnivore Month. So those of you that have been doing it with me, congratulations, because we made it through 2 weeks. I just finished a week. Well, today is finishing a week of 1 meal a day. Feeling really good. But tomorrow I'm going to wake up and probably eat some breakfast or at least get 2 meals in for tomorrow. Kind of see how that feels and see how that plays out. But yeah, everything's feeling good. I've been running. I've been doing yoga. I've been lifting. I've been something I wanted to share before we hop off here for today is this is stuff we've talked about here on this podcast before, but make your workouts really simple. Pick a body part and just go train the body part, or pick a movement and just go train the movement. Like, I am going to go deadlift today. I am going to go squat today. I am going to just kind of make it like a thing. It's just one thing. I'm going to train shoulders today. Well, then if you're going to train shoulders, just pick 2 exercises and do 4 sets of both of them. That's 8 sets. That's enough work. You can get the hell out of there. Just like our 10-minute walks, why not 10-minute lifts or 20-minute lifts? Set a clock. Maybe superset something back and forth. Maybe do a little bicep tricep thing. And just figure out a way to get that work in.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be difficult. Like the other day, I just did like a squat workout, some 10s. So I did multiple sets of 10 with like 295. And then I did some like Bulgarian split squats. That was my workout for the day because I was feeling kind of beat up. But it was a great workout. It took a while. It just doesn't need to be hard. Yeah,
it feels awesome to get a workout in like that. And then the cool thing is you feel better when you're done. And normally, unless you did a lot of work, normally you'll feel a lot better the next day. Like, you'll feel really good. Your legs won't be super sore. Mm-hmm. Your back won't be tight, so just keep that in mind, with your efforts to get in better shape and be less fatterist. Andrew, where can people find you?
Hit me up on Instagram at I am Andrew Z. Make sure you are following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter, youtube.com/Mark Bell's Power Project. I believe that's what it is. There's a lot of people that are watching these videos and you're not subscribing. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that post notifications because we go live all the damn time. We're on LinkedIn. We're on TikTok. We're all over the place. But if you guys are catching any value from this podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes and leave a review, rate it, all that good stuff, because it really does help the show. Nsima, where are you at?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. At Nsima Yin Yang on TikTok and Twitter. You, Mark?
Mr. Joe Kenn, sorry that I didn't make it to the 49ers Panthers game a while back. He's been giving me so much shit because he got me like field passes and stuff, and I was super pumped to see him that day, but then just 9,000 things happened that day that like prevented me from getting there on time to see him. So I know that he'll probably listen to this episode. And I think he's probably just fucking with me, but I think I might have ended up on his shit list for a while. He's one of those guys, he's very black and white. Like, if you didn't do something that you said you were going to do, then you're in a lot of trouble with Coach House. Coach House, I love you, buddy. And that's all the time we got for today. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. You can find me at Mark Smelly Bell on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. Later.